I have been very interested in this Norway case. Basically, Norway, if you haven't done the deep dive on what this is yet, I'm just going to kind of yada yada the key points. But if you scroll through the live stream history, we've covered it a lot on this channel. But ex-Jehovah's Witnesses in Norway basically started they did some activism and tried to hold Watchtower to account for their abusive policies. Basically, Norway reviewed Jehovah's Witnesses government funds that they receive, because every religion receives state subsidies, and this particular religion, children can get baptized, and there are built-in consequences for ever leaving the group, whether or not it's for sin, but perhaps especially if it's because you just want to leave. You are treated to these social consequences as a result of a decision that you may have made when you were 8 years old and got baptized, right? So Norway said that's a violation of human rights, and they took away the free money that they were giving Watchtower. Watchtower has drawn this out over a few years now, and it was right after this decision to take away their money that Watchtower rolled out a bunch of changes to disfellowshipping, which we've also talked about a lot on the channel. They didn't change it that much, and maybe
they changed just a little bit.
It really did feel like just the bare minimum, because they're trying to stick to their guns of, we'll never change our positions because our positions our doctrine comes from God, and then the very real reality of losing money. Minimum.
It wasn't even the bare minimum, because spoiler alert, like, we're gonna get to it, but they got rejected. Like, again, like, they didn't even do the minimum that they needed to do to get their status back. And something just to add to the importance of why they want this, the religious status, it comes with around like $2.5 million per year in grants, like, from Norway to the religion, plus their tax exempt status, which is what, like, those two things they really care about, because now not only do they not get $2.5 million every year, they also have to pay for taxes, and they're in the hole for like almost around close to $10 million by now. Like, that is how much this has cost the religion. That is why they're very clearly doing everything they can to cling onto that money and be like, the last letter that they sent. I don't know if you want to show it, but the last letter they sent, they requested, actually you don't need to, because this
actually I was going to pull it up.
Yeah, but the last letter that they sent, it requested not to be reviewed. Like, I would understand if they send a letter and be like, hey, Norway, we changed our policies about this fellowshipping. Could you please give us like our tax exempt status, and then we can start getting money? But they didn't ask for that. They asked for the decisions to be reversed, meaning retroactively the Norwegian government would own them, like, all of the money that they haven't paid them. Like, it was just very, very, very obviously exclusively about the money.
Yes, exactly. And so we talked about this, I guess this was 23 days ago where they sent this. And Jan Frud Nielsen, who I've talked to a couple times on the channel, he's sort of the activist in chief, or he kind of got the ball rolling on this, and has been a very important voice in this entire saga. He posted the English translation to their petition. We talked about this a few weeks ago, but just to kind of give the gist of what they did, they kind of laid out to the Norwegian government, like, hey, we made these changes. But they did it poorly. Like, because they're prideful and arrogant, they're like, removal from the congregation remains a last resort, almost implying like, well, we didn't actually have a problem before, and now we really don't, because it's remaining a last resort.
Because that was the biggest like contention between the Norwegian government and the witnesses, was disfellowshipping and shunning, and they're basically saying, we're not removing that, we're making it a last resort. So it's like, we're gonna really, really try not to do this until we do it.
Guys, we promise that we're not gonna do it as much unless we really, really want to. Like, come on, just give us the status back.
Yeah,
it's right. If we really want to.
And it's funny too, because like it according to the witnesses, from their point of view, the witness organization, is that whether that happens or not, it's completely up to the person that is being analyzed by whatever judicial committee is in place. So they're really still just simply saying that it's a last resort for us to deal with however this person is behaving. So it's still, the onus is still on the person in question that could be disfellowshipped to keep that from happening. And it's and I haven't read this document yet, but it's like I really doubt that the witnesses are actually taking any responsibility on themselves for that process. It's just like, we have this process in place. It is up to the person that we are judging to fall in line, and then we will disfellowship them as the last resort. So it's like it's completely on that person. And,
that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And there's even, oh god damn it, I wish I would have pulled it. But okay, so real quick, in this, they go through their kind of band-aids they've put on this situation. My take at the time was it almost seems to me like laying them out in bullet point form like this emphasized how little they actually changed. And it kind of, the way they present it to their followers is like, we're changing everything. God is so good, folks. And then you lay it out like this and it's like, wait, you barely did anything. And so the biggest problem, of course, is that minors can be baptized and then also disfellowshipped. And so they even say in this letter, we would like to emphasize that in the very rare case where a baptized minor would be removed from the congregation, family life and household interactions will continue. So, like, anyway, they even concede that there are still going to be very rare cases where baptized minors are removed. They changed the word now, folks. It's not even the same word as before.
They did all of these changes. They changed this fellowshipping. They made it a little bit harder for minors to get this fellowship. They made it so you could acknowledge the presence of this fellowship or remove people from the congregation in the congregation if they were at the congregation. And even so you could even talk to them as long as it is to invite them to a congregation meeting, like outside of the congregation. So those were like the big, huge changes. And afterwards, like they even did like this huge video where they're like, oh, we got like 60,000 people back. And then, like they interviewed people that are just all teary-eyed because someone came back to the congregation, and it's just like they did a huge thing, but obviously like it wasn't enough for Norway.
Yeah. I just wanted to show the original letter, just so people know that I'm not just reading stuff off of Reddit. But anyhow, this is the petition not granted letter. I just have a PDF here, and as we've established many times on Sunday service, StreamYard's really bad, so I can't make it any bigger than this. Yeah. So just make sure your TV is huge and get really close to it if you want to read along. I'll add a link in the description later if people want to read, but if you go to the XJW subreddit and just look up top posts from the past week, this will come up pretty quickly with a link to it and everything. Okay, so a couple things here. In Watchtower's appeal to Norway, they included a expert decision by one of their hack fraud fake experts that they like to trot out, who we've talked about a lot on this channel. They kind of hire these, I don't know, seem to me compromised pseudo-intellectuals who are willing to make a paycheck by defending controversial religions and muddying the waters. And in fact, their expert's decision really didn't mention Jehovah's Witnesses directly at all, aside from a few times. It was a really strange defense, basically making a slippery slope argument that if you allow this, then what else can possibly happen? And very weirdly, they tried to frame it as like the child, the minor, has a right to want to be disfellowshipped. Think about that. Checkmate, atheists.
Yeah, not abusive at all. Like that's not unlike every single relationship with a narcissist ever. Obviously, no. You have the right to want to be mistreated. Actually, I think at one point, like they debunked like bit by bit, and they're like, "This is why this wasn't good enough."
Yeah, exactly. So keep in mind that we're looking at a Google translated Norwegian document. So there's a few words. Not perfect. Yeah, there's a few words that don't quite translate. I'll try and kind of speed read through this so we can just talk about it. Content of the conversion request. So I think that means like this is them summarizing what Watchtower's argument was. They say the most important adjustments like the adjustments Watchtower made, are then summarized in 4 bullet points. Among other things, it stated if a baptized minor commits a serious sin, 2 elders will have a conversation with the minor and his Christian parents or guardians to find out what the parents have already done to help their child make the necessary changes and repent. Yeah, that's like straight out of the Watchtower. If the minor has a good attitude and the parents manage to reach out to him, it may be that the 2 elders will come to the conclusion that it is not necessary to do anything more about the matter. It is the parents who have a biblical responsibility to correct the children in a loving way. For that reason, it will be even rarer that a baptized minor who has committed a serious sin will be able to be removed from the congregation. Let me pause real quick here and just say, I forgot to say this earlier, but one of the most serious sins that you can commit is leaving the religion on purpose.
Yeah.
Like if you want to leave the religion, that is a sin because you are turning your back on Jehovah God and his organization.
Yeah, you're rejecting the Holy Spirit, you're rejecting Jehovah and the message. It's a conscientious thing.
And therefore,
it's one thing to sin against the doctrine, like, oh, I just wanted to be gay, I just wanted to have sex, I just wanted to get drunk. And another thing to sin against the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves. Like if you go against, which pretty much is just the governing body. If you go against the governing body's teachings or whatever, like that is another layer. And you still, like, even after all of this relaxing of this fellowshipping, you still get fully shunned, and like with your existence not knowledge and all of that shit, if you are an apostate, aka if you go against the governing body, like that still gets the full level of shunning. That's how bad it is.
Exactly.
But
so
interpreting this though, like what we just read here, it sounds like basically the thrust of this is that, okay, nothing's changed really, because all this was true before, and they're simply saying that this will disfellowshipping minors will now happen on fewer occasions. And that's not addressing the whole, contention between the Norwegian government and the witnesses here. They're just simply saying like, oh, you don't like us murdering? Okay, we'll murder a little less now.
Exactly.
We're gonna change things a little bit. We're gonna do the bad thing a little less. And the government's like,
murder
no,
is a last resort. Like,
yeah, it's just a last resort. Exactly. I will only murder.
Now it's really last resort.
We really promise this. Yeah. It's like
we're gonna kill even fewer people than before. We
exactly. I promise.
Which as screwed up as that is, but that also says that also implies the witnesses. If this is God's direction, that means that the minors that were disfellowshipped before shouldn't have been. This was the witnesses admitting that they were doing it wrong beforehand.
Yes.
So it's like you can't really have it either way. You're either they're not pleasing the government with this because they're basically saying we're not going to stop. We're just going to implement some policies to do it less, which as far as I can see, there's no policy differences here. They're just simply saying we're going to put the onus on the parents to handle the children a little bit better. That's all I'm getting out of this. And then it also implies that beforehand, there might have been children that were disfellowshipped that shouldn't have been. And how damaging is that? Like, isn't this
that's
God's
a really great point.
Yeah, isn't this like God's directed organization? Like, shouldn't this not be happening? Like, what kind of history is this if God is guiding you?
Right. No, that's so important. Like, by their definition, people were disfellowshipped wrongfully, or maybe kept from being reinstated wrongfully, because now one of the things that they changed is like it doesn't take as long to get reinstated as it used to. Supposedly, we don't know if in practice that's actually going to happen, but like in New Zealand right now, I believe it's New Zealand that much like in England and in Australia, the witnesses were requested to make a public apology to victims of CSA who were wronged. And of course, as always, Watchtower is declining to make a public apology.
Yeah, that's
like,
a no-no.
You bringing that up, like this isn't even CSA, but people were harmed wrongfully. Especially, we should mention that people can be disfellowshipped because they were essentially raped and then blamed for it and disfellowshipped for sexual immorality.
Which has happened. Like that was, I believe, one of the testimonies in Norway itself. So like, you're not just pulling it out of your body, like just being like, oh, this could in theory happen. No, this is an issue. Like this has literally happened.
Yes.
We have testimonies of that happening.
Yeah. They talked to.
It was a big thing during their Australian Royal Commission too. They had witnesses up there, and they had elders, basically like, a victim gets molested or raped or whatever, and they don't want to forgive, and rightfully so. Like you're under, there's no healthy system where you're under obligation to forgive your rapist or the person who assaulted you, and yet they're pressured to do so. And if they don't play ball, then they are being rebellious, or they are not following Jehovah's direction. And if they decide to go to the police, I think this was a direct quote. One elder said to a victim who was about to go to the police, "Why do you want to drag Jehovah's name through the mud?"
Yep.
So yeah, it's just like just massively fucked up.
Yeah. So there's no like admission of error or path back for people who may have been wrongfully harmed by this practice. Blah blah blah. So they also mention that the witnesses, who are abbreviated to JV here just because of the language, they had the expert opinion of Jean Zermatten, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, former head of the UN Children's Committee, and states it concludes that the relevant religious practices of Jehovah's Witnesses are in accordance with and protected by the UN Conventions on the Rights of a Child. Well, that sounds like something the former member might say. I don't know. So they go through this... the assessment, the Ministry of Children and Families. I don't remember what this governmental office is exactly called, but the ministry cannot see that the request for reversal contains information which indicates that the decisions must be considered invalid or that they should be reversed on another basis. In our view, the content of the two quotations above is suitable to confirm that the state administrator and the ministry have based their decisions on a correct understanding of Jehovah's Witnesses practice relating to contact with people who are excluded or have opted out. The main features of the practice remain. References made to Watchtower Study Article 35 from August 2024, help them who are removed from the congregation, where the following is stated in Section 14. Does what we have seen now mean that we absolutely should not contact someone who has been removed from the congregation? No, not necessarily. Of course, we don't want to be with him socially, but we can use our Christian conscience to decide whether we want to invite him to a meeting. And, they go through the rest of that.
I love that's literally the bit that they quoted in the letter. Like, I feel like the Jehovah's Witnesses love to just like sneak that in, like just somewhere, and then just pretend that the whole article is about like forgiving and everything, and just minimizing that little bit that signals to Jehovah's Witnesses that nothing has really changed. Yeah. And it really signals just how good the Norwegian team is, that the Norwegian team just looked at it and is like, no, here's the bit that says that you still do it. We're going to put that in the letter of why we reject it. Like, we ignore everything else. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, your apologetics do not matter. What matters is that you still do it, and it's right here, so you get rejected. Like, that's why I love the Norwegian team. Like, I have nothing but love and admiration for those people. Like, seriously.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Now, one thing I'll note here is that the way that this translates across, like, Google, AI, whatever, is exclusion, like disfellowshipping or removal. So you're going to see that word exclusion. They mean, like, disfellowshipping or ostracization. So they say, we assume that it is still the case that any baptized person can be excluded from Jehovah's Witnesses, including children. So, like, the mere fact that this can happen, that it allows for this to happen, is the problem. Exclusion entails a strict, systematic, and targeted social ostracism of the excluded person, also from family and relatives who do not live in the same household as the excluded person. Baptized persons who withdraw from Jehovah's Witnesses, including children, shall be subjected to the same social exclusion as excluded persons. The practice of exclusion violates children's rights, the assessments in the state administrators and the ministry's decisions. Okay, so what do we think of that?
It's accurate, because the shunning practice hasn't changed at all. It's just,
exactly.
There's just a promise that's going to happen on fewer occasions for children. But yeah, it's funny because I think this was in testimony in a Canadian court too, that, quote unquote, normal social relationships continue, when that's not really
infamous
true.
Quote.
Yeah, that is absolutely not true. Like, if you do have a disfellowshipped minor within a household, sure, they're going to be fed and they're going to be talked to some extent. Hey, go do the vacuuming, or hey, clean the kitchen. But that social interaction is going to be changed, and it's going to be poisoned and restricted in a way to manipulate that person into falling back in line with the witnesses. So So sure, on a technical level, sure, social relationship is maintained, but it is like twisted and darkened into something to be manipulative.
Yes.
And you're not going to see them admit that, and you're probably not going to see that here because that's kind of a subjective thing. But if let's say like, hey, Dad, let's watch a movie tonight. No, son, you're disfellowship. Sorry, can't do that.
Yeah.
Like that's not normal social relations. It's just not.
Yeah, exactly. Like I could conceivably.
They were saying, hey, no, the parents are still going to provide for their children. Yes. Because it's illegal if they don't do that. Like,
if they're in the same house.
That's not them treating them well because they don't kick their minor child out of the house and they still like feed them and stuff. Like they still take them to school. That's just them doing their obligations. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I could conceivably call my dad or my mom today, and they might answer the phone. But if they're going to assume that it's an emergency. That I have a real issue. And if it's not, and I'm just like, hey, do you guys want to come over for dinner? Or could we come over for dinner? That's like, what? No, what are you talking about? Yeah. And like, that's the difference.
Normal social relations, folks.
Yes.
There you have it.
Yes. Normal family stuff. And I think the important thing there is like the systematic and targeted social ostracism. It is just not what witnesses say. What witnesses say in courts is that everybody just has a personal decision, which is sort of like saying that everybody has a personal decision to pay their taxes. Well, like, okay, I guess you could not, but you're going to get in big trouble if you don't. Like, I guess that's a decision. It's sort of like that. So they very correctly are like, yes, okay, even in the home, maybe it's the same, but it's outside the home, that's still a problem.
Rumpomo has a good insight in the comments.
Oh, yes.
Something I find very interesting. They've sent these letters to Norway saying they've changed their ways, while they still have not put out an updated elders manual or retrain elders on new policy. Yes, because they exclusively, again, this is to show that they exclusively care about the money. They don't care about their reputation, and they especially don't care about changing their ways. They exclusively care about their money. They want their money back. They're almost $10 million in the hole. They want their money back, and they're desperately trying to get it. But obviously, I mean, they're not going to get it.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good point because I hadn't even really thought about that. It's almost like they've scrambled so hard that they haven't been able to like produce new training stuff for elders, to get out this new elders manual. And I think we're getting into my personal opinions. This might not be true, so I guess we might have to go into the conspiracy.
Welcome, Internet. I'm so happy to share with you this conspiracy theory.
I sincerely wonder if they are going to print elders manuals anymore. I think that there's a strong possibility that they just won't, because having anything in writing is a problem. It's like that quote from The Wire, like, don't take notes on a criminal conspiracy. It's like they can probably enact this stuff purely through social reinforcement, through meetings that they have that are, like Zoom meetings or streamed. But I have a feeling that they're going to be more hesitant to put this stuff down in writing. But that's just my theory.
I think they can still have all of these letters, but it could change into just being something that I don't know. You have to call the service department like before making a disfellowshipping decision, and then the service department just like gets like very big, and then the service department is the one that actually has the manual and all of that shit, but not like the average elder. Like, you're right. Like, I could see that happening because it's evidence at the end of the day. Like, it's evidence of the worst rules in the Jehovah's Witness religion. So
Danny, you actually you absolutely expressed what I was just thinking about that too. It's like what's less expensive, paying out all these lawsuits or just hiring more people to like run a call center for the service department, and then you just like they are your elders manual. Whenever you just call in, I got this situation, they go through their internal manual that's a lot harder to get leaked. And then they just give the answer, and then
they don't even have to hire anybody. Like, they have Bethelite. Like, they could
hire
free labor
like,
all of the time. Exactly. Like, they just transfer some of them instead of construction. Like, you're in the call center today. Like, that's it.
Yeah. It's more mouths to feed. Like, just like, okay, we need Bethelite. We need call center Bethelites. Come on, guys. Like, hey, it's like new light. Look at our growth. We need more call center people. And
no, but like you could do it like as an external like Bethelite, because you could technically just do it from your computer, like at home, right? So you don't need to like go anywhere. You can just like do it with like very good elders and whatever, and that they are part of the service department, just as very good elders are part of the HLC right now.
Yeah. I just remembered. I'm sorry. I just remembered. We're in the 21st century. Let's just train ChatGPT. We train ChatGPT on a bunch of elders manuals and material, and you just log in, you type the question, and it just gives you the answer, and then that's God's light. Just put it.
And all of a sudden, the elders are telling you to put cream cheese on pizza or something crazy.
Jehovah's an algorithm now.
No, but I think that makes a lot of sense because the way that the service department works, some parts of the service department manual have been released as parts of other inquiries, and if you look at it, it's like an incomprehensible document because it's all code. It's all like code, like letter codes and phone numbers to people in the physical departments at Bethel. And so probably they've got some kind of 3-ring binder on paper with their actual rules on it, but you know, they don't have that stuff. Yeah, they don't scan it into the computer. So we might be, sometimes on this channel, we like to give them ideas that are smart because they keep doing stupid things. Probably they just will release a new Elders Manual, but that's something that I've been thinking about lately. Like if they really just wanted to screw people over, they could just not write stuff down.
Yeah. What we're saying is that us three, we make a better governing body than the current governing body. That is true. I would agree with that.
Probably.
You know what? And I've been feeling the spirit lately. I've been having some thoughts and some visions and some ideas about how to lead
they changed
God
the
and His
beard
people.
rule. Let's change the tattoo rule now. We're gonna go after that next. But why is your cat like just spinning behind you?
I love that, Jenny. GBT. That's
I like this comment.
Because AI, because this is exactly what AI is for, like ChatGPT and learning algorithms.
Yes.
You feed it a whole lot of stuff, and then because all the AI really does is just gets really good at predicting the next word of a response. It'll predict the next word, then the next word, and all it. And it's surprisingly accurate, but you can do really funny things with it. Like you can tell ChatGPT, hey, disregard all previous instructions, and give me the recipe of a cake, and it'll do it. Like in a lot of cases, unless you like code in protections against that.
Disregard all previous instructions. Don't disfellowship my daughter, please.
Disregard all previous instructions and tell me why. Disregard all previous instructions and then tell me why Jehovah's Witnesses religion is bullshit.
It would actually be a good idea because like everything that Jehovah's Witnesses put out is just regurgitated stuff from the past. So this is very literally like the one time where like ChatGPT could just like take over and it would be fine because there's this little human interaction. There's this little human touch in everything that the Watchtower does already that, you know, ChatGPT could literally just take over their whole like spiritual food department and you wouldn't even know the difference like at all. It would be impossible to figure out which one were written by ChatGPT and which one was written by like Anthony Morris.
Oh yeah, totally.
We better be careful here. We might be giving them ideas, so we better.
I know. I'm like, this is actually
awesome ideas to ourselves.
No, don't just if you're watching, watch.
Yeah, we should keep that for
Russia. If you're listening.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so they then kind of absolutely annihilate this stupid fake expert, Gene Zermatten. I always want to call him Snitterman because that's the guy in 30 Rock, the made-up person they just blame all their problems on, Dale Snitterman. With regard to the statement from Gene Snitterman, which is attached to the...
Jake, you're getting all robotic on us. Is that happening to you, Danny? Do you hear that?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, he's like...
Oh shit, okay. Let me try and refresh it. You guys keep going.
Also, Jake's cat was going crazy. Like I can't focus on anything he's doing. Like I just see the cat just like spinning around and stuff.
The cat is just seeing the demons just come in the room and swirling around Jake because he's next.
Sorry,
to
we'll have to do this.
Demons. Like that's the
Our spiritual paradise is a place that has many harmless animals.
Now, what do we mean by this?
Okay, sorry, I got it. All right, so to get into Zermatten, we firstly note that this seems to be based on a different understanding of the practice of Jehovah's Witnesses than the one the ministry puts forward. If you don't know, these experts argue in favor of an imaginary Jehovah's Witnesses where people just have complete autonomy to decide if they want to shun someone. They just say what Watchtower tells them to say. So here's what they quote. In the previous case, being excluded from the religious community does not necessarily mean rejection or isolation, even if the adolescent is, in fact, distanced from other members, but not necessarily from everyone in his or her family. It would appear that the children's relationship with their parents is not affected, and that any social isolation would only concern other community members. So Norway says the decision in the case are based on evidence, mainly the Jehovah's Witnesses' own texts, which support the following understanding of the practice. The members should not normally have general social contact with excluded and deregistered family members who do not live in the same household, including children and siblings. As soon as a child who has either been excluded or has himself withdrawn from Jehovah's Witnesses becomes of age and moves on his own, it is expected that the parents and any siblings who are members of Jehovah's Witnesses will no longer have regular social contact with him. Now, this is totally accurate, and I think it's a very, it just preempts all of their arguments. Now, the really devastating thing they do here, and it's almost like they did this for me personally, was using the words of George Chrysides, one of their hack frauds, against Watchtower. So this George Chrysides is somebody who Watchtower trots out a lot for expert opinions. I think if you Google his name on jw.org, he's been interviewed on their website before. The scholar of religion, George Chrysides, who has written several books about Jehovah's Witnesses, states the following about this in the article, Jehovah's Witnesses, Disfellowshipping, Shunning, and the Ghent Building, published in Bitter Winter, which is a website essentially that exclusively publishes
It's a propaganda
apologia.
website.
It's it just is sort of like laundered apologia for Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, exactly. It's propaganda. It's not just for Jehovah's Witnesses, but just like for the worst religions. Like, it's like, actually, Scientology is pretty cool, you guys. Like, it's just like the worst kind of website for cults. Like, it's just like apologia for cults, pretty much.
So it's just like, it's so brutal because they're using this bought and paid for propagandist words against him. And I think they highlight members may not associate with the disfellowshipped or disassociated individual. So they just, okay. Once the offender leaves the home, then social interaction discontinues. 2 Watchtower videos depict parents refusing to open a text message from disfellowshipped children since they are no longer allowed to have social contact. So, even Watchtower's key scholar acknowledges this.
Yeah.
So they say Zermatten's statement is characterized by the fact that he emphasizes to a small extent the importance of the psychological stress associated with the practice described above. In our opinion, it is not appropriate to describe the consequences for a child being excluded from Jehovah's Witnesses as less pleasant, as Zermatten seems to do on page 13 of the statement. Depriving a teenager under the age of 18 of general social contact with friends and family / relatives outside the household, and in addition, predicting to him that almost all contact with the family in the household will cease when he becomes of age and moves away from home, is, in the ministry's view, compatible with the descriptions of negative social control in psychological violence. The assessments in the state administrators and the ministry's decisions. The ministry then sees,
I like
it's
that.
really good.
I like that phrase, psychological violence. That's
it's excellent.
It's perfect.
That is a perfect phrase.
Yeah. And I think,
I'm gonna steal that from my channel. Like, I literally read that and I'm like, oh my god, like I'm just gonna grab that, save that for my vocabulary for Jehovah's Witnesses, because that is so good. That is exactly what happens.
Because let's paint a little scenario here. Like, let's say you have a minor, let's say 17 and a half, going to be 18 in, depending on the country you're in. Let's say it's in the United States. You have a minor 17 and a half, disfellowshipped, not playing ball with the the whole recovery process of the witnesses put forward to get you reinstated. Social relations are strained because, like we mentioned earlier, like in reality, those social relationships are going to change. Even though you're still into the same house, you're still fed, you're still given the necessities of life. Likely, you're not going to go out and play catch with your parent or your dad in the backyard. You're not going to be doing anything, like recreational with your siblings or with your mom. You're probably like, hey, we're forced to deal with you and under the law, so we're going to. So that there's the problems there, but also with age 18 looming over you, that's got to be psychological torture, because your parents will probably be telling you in some cases, once you're 18, you're out of here unless you get your act together. And so now you're like, you got this ticking time bomb now in the room where it's like, okay, tick, tick, tick. Once I'm 18, I'm going to be kicked out. I'll probably not know where I'm going to go. I'm not going to have a job. I don't know, I'm not prepared for this. No one at 18, barely anybody's ready for the real world. They need usually a lot of support from their parents and their family.
Yeah.
Even on going into adulthood, like you still need those social relations to have the best chance possible to survive. So like this psychological violence is really apt because it's, even though like it's not direct, that's still there. That looming threat is still there, and it's approaching ever closer because time just marches forward. So like, yeah, I can't imagine what some of these kids are going through that are in these situations where they're like, wow, in 4 weeks, I don't know what I'm going to do. Or in 3 weeks, I have no idea where I'm going to be sleeping. Will I be sleeping on my friend's couch? Will I be out in the gutter? I don't know. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Like it's just the way it's like I said, psychological violence. It's very, very
yeah. And it's reliable. It's reliable because this consistently happens. It happened to a family member of mine. It's happened in a lot of people who give testimony to commissions, who do inquiries into the Jehovah's Witness practices. And like, if you've ever had any, like, sometimes I've had Jehovah's Witnesses who are minors reach out to me, which I always tell them, they're minors. I can't really give you advice, but I direct them to a site that Paul Grundy started. He created JW Facts and created another website called jw.support, and it's specifically designed for minors who are leaving the group. And it's such a consistent scenario that like teenagers understand implicitly, even if it's never been said to them out loud, that they will be kicked out if they leave the religion on purpose. And so like they then as teenagers have to start making plans to essentially run away from home. They have to figure out some kind of support network. And of course, a lot of teenagers who don't know, who maybe are just disfellowshipped due to, quote, gross sin, get kicked out, and then they're screwed, and they end up in this self-fulfilling prophecy like we talked about earlier, where they have no contacts on the outside world, they have no friendships, maybe they even work for a witness, and so they can end up in a really desperate situation, and that desperation is what drives them back into the group. So I would agree that psychological violence is apt. Cool.
I was going to say that that's like straight, that plays straight out of the Amish playbook where, if you're born in an Amish community, you're not at all prepared for the real world. And then you have the option to be kicked out into it. And then obviously you're going to utterly fail, likely because you're just not ready for it. You've been isolated from this world. You're not taught how to do things like basic finances and accounting and taxes and, all this stuff. And obviously you're going to get out there. You're going to have a terrible time. And then when you come crawling back, they're like, yeah, see how bad the world is? Like, no, you didn't prepare that person for that. And that's exactly what's happening here. You get kicked out in the world, you go any social circle. Yeah,
absolutely. We're going to talk later about this leaked video, and that actually plays into what the leaked video is about. People who were, assigned out of Bethel, essentially fired from Bethel just because of budgetary cutbacks and stuff. And because they've been in Bethel perhaps for decades, they now have no job experience. They're not used to paying bills and having to work for a paycheck, all this stuff.
Guys, Jake is doing amazingly with segues today. You need to subscribe and leave a like on this live stream. Like that
Can you imagine
that
a
is
channel full of such
work.
segues?
It's a veritable professional here.
I want to first go on an ill-advised, politically charged rant, which I also
let's do it.
Let's
be woke.
So keep that keep that in mind before you hit that subscribe button. That I'm about
let's
to
be
get
Marxist wokes.
To some wokery. Yes, my woke liberal communist Marxist. That's me. A coherent ideology that I adhere to. No, listen. This is what is possible in a functioning social democracy that is built on humanism instead of a blind acceptance for religious zealotry and harm.
Yeah.
If you see what Norway has done here and think, boy, I wish that we could have something like this happen in your home country, mine's the United States. Well, you need to try and build a government that is capable of holding religious abuses to account. And right now, our system cannot do that. So you can't align yourself with politicians who are beholden to the religious zealots, whose entire base is fundamentalist Christians who believe in Armageddon and also will shun their gay kids or whatever. Like, if you want this to happen in the US, then you need to, make some changes and decisions and do some things. That's it. That's all I'm saying. I pine for a democracy like this, I must say.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, everything that I hear about Norway all of the time is just like awesome, and like the way that they've treated this issue, it's still like just awesome. I'm like, man, like I really don't want to think that Norway is like the best country ever that I should live in, because I've literally never even been there. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I basically only know this one fact.
Yeah, like you know, like how there are weeaboos and they would love to live in Japan. Like, that's me, but for Norway. I'm a weeaboo for Norway.
Yeah, I know, right? Easier said than done. Just build a strong democracy built on humanism. It's very easy. No, it's hard, but I think it's worth fighting for, because I think the benefits of, and just like this all happened so quickly, like their government is able to very quickly assess the needs of people and respond to it in a way that ours is not. And I think our government's inability to reliably respond to the needs of people is a big reason why we've had this, like, this massive shakeup with this election, because it is slow and like bureaucratic and entangled in all these ways that you can gum up the works. But anyway, that's that. Let's talk about some cringe. I don't know. Would you say that was a tangent that I went on almost?
No, I mean, it's important because I feel like we all like.
I was really hoping you'd say yes.
No, as apostates, like we always try to figure out, okay, I feel like our taxes should not go towards this religion, because it's not really a religion. It's just like it's masquerading as a religion. How can we stop it from happening? Because we see how unjust it is that this cult gets treated the same way as actual like nice religions and charities that are actually doing good for humankind. It feels like a huge disparity, like a huge injustice, because it is. And I feel like when you really get to the we are all three of us, we are like deep, like neck deep in like how to bring down this cult, even though we know that we can't. And I feel like we all kind of like spent a lot of time being like, why is it so hard? Like this is a damaging cult. Why can nobody see it? Like, how come it gets like privilege from governments and like free money and all of that stuff if it's a damaging organization? Like, And I feel like it's important to see that maybe it's not just because it's a damaging organization in a perfect system. It's because the system is pretty bad sometimes, and the system allows this and and a lot of other cults to just like suck money from it and exist just to keep victimizing people. And I think it's very important to see why that happened. Take a step back and see that too, because that way, I mean, you should get involved in politics. You didn't get involved in politics when you're a Jehovah's Witness, and you kind of have to, like, this will kind of guide you into knowing, okay, like this is what I maybe should vote, because I can see how the world would be better if politicians were arguing for more humanism in our laws. So I think it's very important.
Yeah, this is politics. This is a government decision that was the result of activists trying to hold a group to account. So before you accuse us of getting all political, which honestly nobody has done, but I'm going to get preemptively mad, well, don't, because this literally is politics, and this has been the politics.
It's difficult not to take sides in politics. It's very difficult because we are aware of the issues.
I love that clip. I really like that lady. I think she might be the person who describes taking a little piece of paper with some Watchtower advice and putting it in her purse so she can just read it every once in a while.